All great political action begins with the truth that philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways, but the point is to change it. The history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggles, and every struggle between classes is a political struggle shaped by the conditions of material life. The oppressed are allowed once every few years to decide which particular representatives of the oppressing class shall represent and repress them, and yet the real root of their chains lies far deeper in the structure of production. Religion is the sigh of the oppressed creature, the heart of a heartless world and the soul of soulless conditions. It is the opium of the people, offering comfort when the world refuses justice. The ideas of the ruling class are in every epoch the ruling ideas, for those who control material production control mental production as well. Capital is dead labor, which, vampire-like, lives only by sucking living labor, and lives the more labor it sucks, creating a cycle of exploitation that grows with every new invention and every new machine. The worker becomes poorer the more wealth he produces, the more his product increases in value. The world of things rises in power while the world of human beings falls into insignificance. Labor produces not only commodities, it produces itself, and the worker is a commodity, reducing human life to a market price measured in hours, sweat, and survival. The emancipation of the working class must be the act of the working class itself, for no savior from outside can lift the weight of history from their shoulders. Communism is the riddle of history solved, and in knowing itself as this solution, it becomes the conscious movement of the working class confronting the alienation of modern society. Human beings make their own history, but not under conditions chosen by themselves, rather under circumstances existing already, given and transmitted from the past, shaping every revolution before the first stone is thrown. The production of ideas, of conceptions, of consciousness is directly interwoven with the material activity and material intercourse of human beings, forming reflections of social life rather than independent creations of thought. To be radical is to grasp things by the root, and the root for humanity is man himself, living, suffering, creating, transforming. When the proletarians have nothing to lose but their chains, they discover that they have a world to win. Workers of all countries, unite. The tradition of all dead generations weighs like a nightmare on the brains of the living, reinforcing structures that demand courage to break. The ruling ideas are nothing more than the ideal expression of the dominant material relationships grasped as ideas. Philosophers have interpreted the world, but the challenge is to transform it through conscious revolutionary activity. Private property has made us so stupid and one-sided that an object is ours only when we have it, but the goal is a world where being replaces having. The alienation of the worker in his product means that the more of himself he gives to the world through labor, the less of himself remains. A society that creates immense wealth for the few and immense poverty for the many holds within itself the seeds of its own destruction. Every emancipation is a restoration of the human world and of human relationships to man himself, making freedom a practical truth instead of a philosophical dream. The production of too many useful things results in too many useless lives, for capitalism multiplies objects while eroding meaning. In bourgeois society, the living laborer becomes a mere appendage of the machine, and his life activity becomes a torment rather than fulfillment. All social life is essentially practical, and all mysteries which lead theory to mysticism find their rational solution in human practice. The human essence is no abstraction inherent in each single individual, in its reality it is the ensemble of social relations. Men enter into definite relations that are indispensable and independent of their will, relations of production corresponding to a stage in the development of their material productive forces. When feudalism was overthrown, the bourgeoisie established new conditions of oppression and struggle, forming new antagonisms that continue to sharpen as productive powers expand. The bourgeoisie has accomplished wonders far surpassing ancient pyramids or Gothic cathedrals, but it has also drowned the most heavenly ecstasies of religious fervor in the icy water of egotistical calculation. The need for a constantly expanding market chases the bourgeoisie across the entire surface of the globe, compelling it to nestle everywhere, settle everywhere, establish connections everywhere. In place of old local and national seclusion and self-sufficiency comes universal interdependence. Yet this interdependence magnifies crisis, for capitalism produces revolutions in the means of production while leaving social relations chained to the same contradictions. Modern industry has converted the small workshop of the patriarchal master into the great factory of the industrial capitalist, bringing masses of workers together whose shared misery breeds the conditions for their union. Machinery, gifted with the marvelous power of shortening labor time, has been turned into the instrument for converting the worker's whole lifetime into labor time. The more actively the worker expends himself in labor, the more powerful the alien world becomes which he creates over and against himself. Just as production is directly from the worker, so is consumption by the capitalist directly taken from him. Under capitalism, all that is sacred is profaned, and man is compelled to face with sober senses the real conditions of his life and his relations with his fellow men. The bourgeoisie produces its own grave diggers, its fall and the victory of the proletariat are equally inevitable as long as class struggle remains the motor of history. The circulation of commodities is the real baptism of money, and money, which appears as the end of circulation, is in fact its driving force. Accumulation of wealth at one pole is simultaneously accumulation of misery at the opposite pole, marking the widening divide between those who possess capital and those who possess only their labor. The worker feels at home only outside work, and when he is at work, he feels outside himself, reducing life to hours purchased and sold. Communism is for us not a state of affairs to be established, but the real movement which abolishes the present state of things. Life is not determined by consciousness, but consciousness by life, for real social being determines thought. When labor begins to produce beyond immediate needs, a division of labor arises, generating the first antagonisms between classes. The first historical act is the production of the means to satisfy needs, the production of material life itself. As individuals express their life, so they are, what they are, therefore, coincides with their production. Alienated labor reverses the relationship between subject and object, causing man to lose himself in the product of his own hands. The less you are, the more you have, and the more you have, the less